should probably start with the moment I knew my marriage was over, but the truth is, it had been unraveling for years. The fights weren't loud or dramatic. They were quiet, corrosive things that ate away at us. Silence became sharper than any scream. By the time the divorce papers were signed, I wasn't surprised. What did surprise me was how much darker things got after it was official. We split everything clean: house, savings, furniture, on paper, anyway. She got the house. I took the car and my share of the money. She wanted the house more than anything, and I was happy to leave it behind. It had stopped feeling like home long before the separation. What I didn't expect was how much she would keep inserting herself into my life after the divorce. She'd call me about forgotten belongings, an old mug, a photo album, a jacket from college, little things I hadn't asked for. She insisted I come by in person to pick them up. Each time I stepped back into that house, it felt colder, darker, like she hadn't opened a window since I left. She'd lost weight, her eyes were hollow, but she would smile, almost manic, and ask me to stay for coffee. Sometimes, out of guilt, I did. The conversations twisted quickly. Accusations, veiled threats, questions about where I'd been the night before. It always ended with me leaving angry, feeling like I'd been pulled into a trap. At first, I chalked it up to her not handling the divorce well. People unravel in different ways. But then small things started happening at my apartment. Mail arriving already opened, my phone missing from the counter and showing up in the bathroom. My work bag zipped differently than I'd left it. At first, I thought I was just distracted. Then one night, I woke up to the sound of my front door clicking shut. I lived alone. My heart pounded as I grabbed the heaviest thing nearby, an old lamp, and checked every corner. Nobody. Nothing missing. But on my kitchen counter sat a mug. One of hers. The chipped porcelain one she'd insisted I take. I hadn't. The next day I confronted her. She acted insulted. She said I was paranoid, that maybe I was lonelier than I admitted. She leaned on the doorframe, smirking, like she'd rehearsed it. Then she said something that still makes my skin crawl. "You think you're free, but you're not." Her voice was steady, not joking. It was a promise. I stopped visiting after that. I stopped answering her late-night calls. But the more I ignored her, the more intense things got. A picture frame of us appeared in my apartment, a set of keys I'd never seen. Once, I opened my closet to find one of her scarves draped over my coats, faintly smelling of her perfume. I didn't bring any of it here. I know I didn't. The breaking point came one night when I woke up to the sound of water running. My bathroom sink was on full blast. I went in, turned it off, and when I looked up, written across the mirror in a greasy black marker was, "Come back." My stomach dropped. This wasn't a ghost. This was her. She had been inside my apartment while I slept. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I sat up with every light on, a knife on the coffee table, waiting for the knob to turn again. Nothing happened. The next morning, I drove straight to her house, ready to call the police, ready to scream. The curtains were drawn tight. She opened the door, pale but smiling. She asked if I'd had a rough night. She said it the way someone says, "I know what you did." I told her to leave me alone. She said I was overreacting, but her eyes gleamed. "You'll come back," she said quietly. "You always do." That night, I set up a cheap camera in my living room. When I checked the footage the next morning, my blood ran cold. At 3:17 a.m., the door opened. She walked in, barefoot, wearing gloves. She went through my drawers. She opened my closet. She stood in my bedroom doorway for a full minute, watching me sleep. Then she left. It wasn't a ghost. It wasn't a hallucination. It was my ex-wife. I went to the police. They told me to get a restraining order. I filed one. Served papers, changed my locks, moved apartments. She still found me. A new mug in my kitchen, a note slipped under my door, a shadow lingering near my car. The restraining order didn't matter. She was careful, never leaving fingerprints, never breaking in violently enough to make it an arrest. Just enough to keep me scared, to remind me she could get to me. I changed my number, blocked every account. I stopped telling people where I lived. I still saw her sometimes. At the grocery store, parked across the street from my job. Once, when I was coming out of my building, she brushed past me, close enough to whisper, "I know where you sleep now." I spun around, but she was gone. I installed deadbolts, security bars, cameras, alarms. She still found a way in. I'd wake up to my chair moved 3 inches from where it was. My toothbrush wet, my shoes lined up differently. tiny, precise invasions of my space. Each time, she left nothing the police could use. They treated me like I was exaggerating. But I had the footage. I showed them. They said it was circumstantial. She was on my property, but not doing anything. The worst part? She didn't look unhinged in public. She smiled. She laughed with friends. She posted inspirational quotes on social media. Everyone thought she was coping so well with the divorce. I was the one who looked paranoid. 2 weeks ago, I came home to find my bedroom window open. On my pillow was a wedding photo, our faces scratched out with something sharp. Next to it, a single glove. Hers. She'd been there while I was at work. She'd sat on my bed. She wanted me to know. That was when I realized this wasn't going to stop unless I made it stop. I bought new locks, new cameras, even a gun. I started documenting everything, dates, times, photos, video. If the police weren't going to help, I had to build a case myself. Last Friday, I caught her red-handed. My camera alerted me on my phone while I was at work. Motion in the kitchen. I pulled up the live feed and there she was, rifling through my drawers like she lived there. I didn't call her, didn't yell. I called the police and told them a burglary was in progress. This time, I stayed on the line, made them listen to me breathe while watching her on the feed. They showed up before she could leave. I drove home in time to see them pulling her out in handcuffs. She wasn't crying. She wasn't screaming. She was smiling. Her eyes locked on mine as they pushed her into the cruiser, like she knew she'd already won. The DA took the case seriously this time. They found gloves, keys, even a USB with copies of my personal documents in her bag. She'd been planning more than break-ins. She had my passport information, bank accounts, even old emails I thought were long gone. She wasn't just harassing me. She was dismantling my life piece by piece. She's in custody now, waiting for trial. The restraining order has teeth this time, and the evidence is too strong to ignore. My lawyer says she'll do real time. Maybe years. I finally slept last night. Not deeply, not peacefully, but enough. My apartment is quiet. My locks are untouched. The cameras show nothing but empty rooms. I know it's not truly over. Prison isn't forever. But for the first time in months, I feel like I've taken my life back. The scariest part of all of this wasn't the nights I woke up to movement in the dark or the notes left on my counter. It was realizing how easy it is for someone who knows you, really knows you, to strip you down to nothing. Not with violence, but with patience, with obsession, with love turned inside out. I don't miss her. I don't hate her either. What I feel is worse. I know she's still out there, waiting for her next chance. And I know, if I ever let my guard down again, she'll take it. My name's David. I was married to my ex-wife Claire for 9 years. We weren't good together, and when it finally collapsed, I thought the worst of it was behind me. Lawyers, splitting property, hashing out money. It was brutal, but it was paperwork. When the judge stamped the decree, I felt like I could breathe again. I underestimated how much she hated me. Claire didn't just want out. She wanted me destroyed. I'd heard her say things in the heat of our fights like, "You'll regret leaving me," or "I'll make sure you don't get to be happy without me." I thought they were words, spiteful things people spit out when they're hurting. They weren't. They were promises. It started 6 months after the divorce. I was walking home from work one night, down a quiet street near my apartment. A man stepped out of a parked car and fell in beside me. At first, I thought he was going to mug me. He was tall, leather jacket, shaved head, looked like someone you wouldn't want to run into in an alley. But he didn't threaten me. He just said, calm as could be, "She hired me to kill you." I froze. My throat dried up. "She offered cash," he went on. "Half up front, half when the job was done. Said you were an easy target. Routine, but after looking at you, I don't think you deserve it." My brain couldn't catch up with his words. I stammered something like, "What the hell are you talking about?" He smiled a little. "Your wife, ex-wife, I know. Claire. She gave me your address, your routines. She wants you gone. But here's the thing. I don't do sloppy work. I don't kill people who didn't earn it. And you? You don't look like you earned it." He pulled out a cigarette, lit it, and took a drag, completely relaxed, while my heart pounded out of my chest. "I'm telling you this because you need to understand. She's serious, and she's not going to stop. You've got an enemy who'd rather see you dead than see you move on." I was too stunned to speak. Eventually, I managed, "Why are you telling me this? Why not just do it?" He shrugged. "Call it professional courtesy. Call it a gut feeling. Doesn't matter. Point is, you need to watch your back. Because if she doesn't get me, she'll get someone else." And then he walked off, just like that. Left me standing in the middle of the sidewalk, shaking so bad I could hardly breathe. I didn't go to the police right away. Think about it. What was I going to say? "Officer, some guy on the street told me my ex-wife hired him to kill me, but he didn't actually try to hurt me?" They'd laugh me out of the station. Still, I couldn't ignore it. That night, I barely slept, replaying his words over and over. My ex-wife had hired a hitman. My ex-wife wanted me dead. The next day, I called her. She answered on the first ring, cheerful in a way that put me on edge. "Hey, David," she said. "Cut the bullshit, Claire," I snapped. "Did you hire someone to kill me?" There was a pause. Then she laughed. A cold, cruel laugh I'd heard too many times when we were married. "You think you're that important?" she said. "Please." And then she hung up. It wasn't a denial. It was a taunt. From that moment on, I lived like a hunted man. Every time I left the house, I scanned the street for unfamiliar faces. Every car that slowed near me made my pulse spike. I changed my routines, different routes to work, different grocery stores. I kept the blinds shut in my apartment. Then the accidents started. One morning, I found my car tires slashed. A week later, I came home to the smell of gas in my apartment, my stove burners turned on full blast, the air heavy and dangerous. Another time, someone left a dead rat on my doorstep, its neck broken clean. I knew it was her. She was paying someone to scare me, soften me up. Or maybe she was trying to kill me in ways that could look like accidents. I finally went to the police, but they were useless. "Do you have proof your ex-wife is responsible?" they asked. No, I didn't. I couldn't prove she'd hired a man to tail me, couldn't prove she'd broken into my apartment. All I had were my words, and hers carried more weight. She was calm, smiling, convincing. She'd say I was paranoid, still bitter over the divorce, and they believed her. The man who'd first approached me showed up again a month later. Same street, same calm tone. "She's getting impatient," he said. "She wants it done soon. She's doubling the offer." I felt sick. "Why are you still talking to me? Why not just walk away?" He looked at me for a long moment, then said, "Because you need to decide how badly you want to live." Those words rattled in my head for days. How badly did I want to live? Badly enough to move across the country? To disappear? Badly enough to fight back? I started documenting everything. Photos of the slashed tires, the rat, the gas stove. I kept a journal of every odd occurrence, every strange call, every shadow. I sent copies of the notes to a friend, told him to open them only if something happened to me. Then came the night I almost died. I was walking home late when I felt someone behind me, not just following, closing in. I turned and saw him, not the first hitman, but someone else. Hood pulled up, hand inside his jacket. His pace quickened when I turned. I ran. He chased me 3 blocks, through empty streets, until I ducked into a 24-hour laundromat and scared the hell out of the clerk. The man lingered outside for a minute, then melted into the night. That was when I knew Claire wasn't bluffing. She wasn't just trying to scare me. She was trying to finish me. I made a decision the next morning. If the system wasn't going to protect me, I had to protect myself. I found the first hitman again. Don't ask me how, but when you're desperate, you learn where to look. He listened to me spill everything, then leaned back and crossed his arms. "You want it to stop? There's only one way." I stared at him. I knew what he meant, but I couldn't do it. No matter how much I hated Claire, I couldn't order her death. That would make me her. Instead, I gave him money to get out of town, to vanish. Because if she couldn't find him, maybe she'd give up. Maybe she'd get bored. For a few weeks, things were quiet. I started to think maybe I'd made it through. Maybe she'd finally realized she wasn't going to win. Then last night, I came home to find my apartment door ajar. My stomach dropped. I stepped inside, every instinct screaming at me to leave, but I couldn't. On my kitchen table was an envelope. Inside was a single photograph, me asleep in my bed, taken from inside my bedroom. On the back, written in her handwriting, "Next time, I won't miss." That's where I'm at now. I'm staying with a friend, moving again soon, this time without telling anyone where I'm going. Claire's smart, dangerous, and she has nothing left to lose. The real horror of divorce isn't losing the house or the money or even the person you thought you loved. It's realizing that sometimes the person who used to sleep beside you is capable of becoming your executioner. I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who ran, but after everything with Mark, running was the only thing that kept me alive. I met him when I was 23. He was charming in that confident, older man way. Expensive watch, nice car, a smile that made me feel seen. For years, I thought I'd lucked out. He told me he loved how independent I was, how driven. But slowly, those compliments turned into criticism. If I worked late, he accused me of cheating. If I laughed at a coworker's joke, he said I was disrespecting him. I ignored the warning signs because I wanted to believe he'd change. He didn't. By the time I filed for divorce, the fights were explosive. He'd scream, slam doors, punch walls, but he never hit me. Not directly. Instead, he chipped away at me in other ways. Financial control, threats, intimidation. I stayed longer than I should have because I was afraid. But the day I left, something in me snapped. I packed a single suitcase, called a rideshare, and didn't tell him where I was going. For a while, I stayed in a women's shelter in another county. It wasn't glamorous, thin walls, group dinners, but it was safe. The staff helped me get a restraining order, a new phone, and a new job under a different last name. I thought I'd done everything right. Then the texts started. They came from a number I didn't recognize, but the tone was his. "You can't hide forever. I know where you sleep. We're not done." I changed my number again. 2 weeks later, another text. "Cute apartment. Shame if something happened to it." I went to the police. They said the texts were concerning, but without proof it was him. Their hands were tied. The restraining order helped, but only on paper. He knew how to skate just close enough to the edge of the law without crossing it. The first time I saw him again was at the grocery store. He was leaning against the cart return, sunglasses on, smiling. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. Just seeing him there was enough to make my heart slam against my ribs. By the time I got someone from the store to walk me out, he was gone. That night, someone knocked on my door at 3 a.m. Soft, rhythmic. When I peered through the peephole, no one was there. But the next morning, there was an envelope wedged under my doormat. Inside was a single photo of me, taken from across the street as I unlocked my door. I doubled the locks and put a chair under the handle at night. I kept pepper spray in every room. I told my boss at the new job what was going on, and she was kind enough to let me leave early when I needed to. But it escalated anyway. One morning, I came out to my car and found all 4 tires slashed. Another time, my mailbox was stuffed with shredded photographs of me and Mark from when we were married. In each one, my face had been torn out. The final straw was when I came home and found my cat hiding under the bed, shaking, the front door wide open. Nothing was stolen, but someone had been inside. That was when I decided to leave the city altogether. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I left my apartment at midnight, drove 3 hours south, and checked into a tiny roadside motel. I paid cash. No ID. It felt like witness protection, but it was just me trying to disappear from my ex-husband. For the first 2 nights, I actually slept. It felt like maybe I'd shaken him. I'd sit on the motel bed, listening to the hum of the mini fridge and the hiss of cars on the highway, and tell myself I was safe. Then, on the 3rd night, someone knocked on my door. 3 soft taps. I froze. I didn't move, didn't breathe. After a minute, a folded note slid under the door. I waited until I heard footsteps retreat down the hall before grabbing it. It said, "You're hard to find, but not impossible." I dropped the note like it burned me. The next morning, I asked the manager if anyone had asked about me. He just shrugged, said he didn't pay much attention to the guests. I begged him to install a camera in the hall. He laughed like it was a joke. I stayed anyway because I didn't know where else to go. But from then on, I kept a kitchen knife under my pillow. A week passed with no new notes. I started to hope it had been some random creep, not Mark. Maybe I was just paranoid. Then, one night, as I was brushing my teeth, the bathroom light flickered and went out. I stepped into the room and saw my duffel bag on the bed, zipped open. I hadn't left it like that. Inside was a single object, my old wedding ring. the one I'd left behind when I fled. I almost threw up. There was no way he could have gotten it unless he'd been back to the house. No way it could be here unless he'd been inside my room while I was in the bathroom. I called 911, but by the time the cops came, he was gone. No fingerprints, no sign of forced entry. They gave me the same speech. We can't prove it's him. I didn't sleep at all that night. Around 4 a.m., I heard someone whisper my name outside the window, just once. Low, almost tender. The next morning, I packed my things to leave, but when I opened the door, he was there. Mark, leaning against the railing, holding a paper cup of coffee like it was a normal morning. "Morning, Jess," he said, smiling. I slammed the door and locked it. My hands shook as I dialed 911 again. He knocked lightly. "Let's talk," he said. "I just want to talk." I yelled that the police were coming. He laughed and walked away. By the time the cruiser showed up, he was gone again. That was the moment I realized no one was going to save me. Not the police, not the motel manager, not a court order. If I wanted to survive, I had to outthink him. So I set a trap. I left the motel door unlocked one night, but rigged a cheap motion-activated camera I'd bought at a hardware store to the dresser. I took my cat and slept in my car across the street. At 2:17 a.m., my phone buzzed with an alert. Motion detected. I watched the feed from the camera as Mark slipped into my room, gloved hands rifling through my bag. I called 911, and this time told them I had live video of a break-in. They came in 6 minutes. They caught him still inside, trying to climb out the bathroom window. When they searched his car, they found a trunk full of things: duct tape, zip ties, a bottle of chloroform, and a folder of photos of me, my new workplace, even the motel. I watched from my car as they arrested him. He looked calm, almost bored. When our eyes met, he smirked, like he still had the upper hand. But he didn't. Not anymore. Mark's in jail now, awaiting trial for stalking, breaking and entering, and a laundry list of other charges. I'm back in a real apartment under my new name, living with my sister. I still jump at shadows. I still check every lock twice. But I'm breathing again. And sometimes, late at night, I think about that motel room and how close I came to becoming another headline about a woman who just disappeared. I think about how easy it is for a man like Mark to slip through every legal net. And I promise myself I'll never let someone like him get that close again. Because the real horror of divorce isn't the paperwork or the lawyers. It's realizing the man you thought you loved is willing to hunt you down rather than let you go.